The desert wind moved silently across the ruins as the archaeologist brushed dust away from a massive stone buried beneath the earth. At first, it looked like nothing more than part of an ancient collapsed wall. But then the shape became clearer. It was a footprint. Not an ordinary human footprint. This one was impossibly large. The discovery itself was controversial, quickly dismissed by many scientists as erosion or natural rock formation. Yet for those who witnessed it firsthand, the moment awakened a terrifying question that has haunted humanity for thousands of years. What if giants once truly walked the earth? Across nearly every ancient civilization, legends describe enormous beings that existed long before recorded history. Some were portrayed as kings, others were warriors, monsters, Sakral, Bone, Anwa, Dornes, Wakters, or half-divine creatures born from forbidden unions between heaven and humanity. But perhaps the most mysterious giants of all appear within the pages of the Bible itself. They were called the Nephilim. Their story is incredibly brief, hidden within only a few cryptic verses in the Book of Genesis. Yet those few lines became the foundation for one of the greatest mysteries in religious history. According to the ancient text, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. That was all. No detailed explanation, no clear origin. Just a sudden mention of giant beings appearing before the Great Flood. And then, almost as quickly as they appeared, they vanished into mystery. For centuries, theologians, historians, and scholars argued endlessly over who or what the Nephilim truly were. Were they literal giants, corrupted descendants of fallen angels, ancient kings later transformed into myth? Or do these strange stories preserve fragments of forgotten history buried beneath thousands of years of legend? The word Nephilim itself remains mysterious. Some scholars translate it as the fallen ones, while others connect it to violence, power, or beings who descended from above. Ancient Jewish traditions expanded the story dramatically, especially in texts outside the standard Bible, such as the Book of Enoch. And that is where the mystery becomes truly unsettling. According to Enoch, a group of heavenly beings known as the Watchers descended to earth long before Noah's flood. Unlike ordinary angels, these entities became fascinated with humanity. They took human women as wives. They taught mankind forbidden knowledge, and their offspring became the Nephilim, gigantic beings of immense strength and terrifying violence. The descriptions paint a horrifying image. The Nephilim were said to consume enormous amounts of food, devastate entire lands, and spread chaos across civilization. Some texts claim they eventually turned against humanity itself, devouring humans when resources became scarce. Ancient writers blamed them for corrupting the world before the flood. According to these traditions, humanity's violence became so severe that God sent the Great Flood to destroy both mankind and the Nephilim together. To modern readers, the story sounds like fantasy. Yet what makes the Nephilim mystery so fascinating is how similar giant legends appear across nearly every culture on Earth. The ancient Greeks spoke of the Titans. Norse mythology described the Jotnar, enormous beings older than the gods themselves. Hindu traditions mention giant races that existed before humanity's current age. Native American tribes told stories about red-haired giants inhabiting caves and mountains. Even ancient Mesopotamian civilizations described semi-divine rulers possessing extraordinary size and strength. The repetition is difficult to ignore. Why did so many disconnected civilizations tell stories about giant beings existing in the distant past? Some historians believe these myths symbolized powerful ancient rulers remembered through exaggeration over generations. Others argue giant stories represented humanity's fear of chaos, nature, and destructive power. But fringe researchers believe something far stranger may have occurred. Throughout the last century, rumors repeatedly surfaced about gigantic human skeletons allegedly discovered around the world. Newspapers from the 1800s published sensational reports describing enormous bones unearthed in burial mounds, caves, and ancient ruins across North America, the Middle East, and Europe. Some stories claimed skeletons over 9 feet tall had been uncovered. Others spoke of skulls with unusual features or gigantic weapons, too large for ordinary humans. Most mainstream archaeologists dismiss these reports as hoaxes, exaggerations, or misidentified remains. Many newspaper accounts from the 19th century lacked scientific verification and often sensationalized discoveries to attract attention. Yet conspiracy theories quickly emerged. Some people became convinced governments and museums were hiding evidence that giant humans once existed. The Smithsonian Institution became a central target of these theories after rumors spread claiming it had secretly destroyed giant skeletons to protect mainstream historical narratives. Despite repeated denials and lack of evidence, the legend continues across the internet even today. And perhaps that persistence reveals something deeper, because humanity has always been fascinated by the possibility that history is incomplete. That ancient civilizations may have encountered things modern society no longer understands. One of the most intriguing biblical connections appears in the story of Goliath. Unlike the mysterious Nephilim before the flood, Goliath appears as a very real giant warrior described in the Old Testament. The Bible claims he stood over 9 feet tall and wore armor weighing hundreds of pounds. David's victory over Goliath became one of history's most famous stories. But interestingly, Goliath was not described as unique. Scripture mentions other giant warriors connected to tribes, such as the Anakim and Rephaim, peoples believed by ancient Israelites to descend from earlier giant races inhabiting Canaan before their arrival. Ancient spies sent into the land reportedly returned terrified, saying, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes." To them, the giants were not symbolic. They were real. Some scholars believe these stories may reflect encounters with unusually tall warrior tribes, later mythologized through oral tradition. Human gigantism is a genuine medical condition, and exceptionally tall individuals certainly existed throughout history. But others argue the descriptions go far beyond normal human proportions. The mystery deepens when examining ancient megalithic structures across the world. Massive stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons appear in ancient sites from Egypt, Peru, Lebanon, and Easter Island. Some stones seem almost impossible to move using primitive technology alone. This led fringe theorists to suggest giant beings may have helped construct ancient monuments. Again, mainstream archaeology rejects these claims entirely. Evidence strongly supports human engineering methods involving ramps, ropes, manpower, and advanced planning rather than giant builders. Still, the visual impact of these enormous structures fuels imagination powerfully. because standing beside stones larger than houses naturally makes people wonder whether ancient civilizations possessed capabilities modern society underestimates. The Nephilim mystery also intersects with modern conspiracy culture in bizarre ways. Some theories connect the giants to extraterrestrials. Others claim the Nephilim survived the flood and continue influencing world events through hidden bloodlines or secret societies. These ideas spread widely online despite lacking credible evidence. Yet beneath even the wildest theories lies an enduring human fascination with forbidden origins. The Nephilim story challenges the boundary between divine and human. Ancient traditions repeatedly warned against crossing that boundary. In many interpretations, the sin of the fallen angels was not merely rebellion against God, but corrupting humanity itself through forbidden unions and dangerous knowledge. The Nephilim became the result of that corruption. Half human, half divine, neither fully belonging to heaven nor earth. That idea terrified ancient civilizations because it represented disorder entering creation itself. And perhaps that is why the flood story follows immediately afterward. Many religious scholars interpret the Nephilim symbolically rather than literally. They argue the giants represented violent rulers, corrupt dynasties, or humanity's growing moral decay before the flood. Others believe the beings described in Genesis were absolutely real supernatural entities interacting with early humanity. And then there are those who suspect ancient myths preserve distorted memories of forgotten events humanity no longer fully understands. After all, myths often contain fragments of truth hidden beneath layers of symbolism. Flood legends existed worldwide long before modern geology confirmed ancient catastrophic flooding events. Stories once dismissed entirely sometimes reveal surprising connections to real historical disasters. Could giant legends preserve similar echoes of the past? Some anthropologists point out that early humans did coexist with enormous Ice Age animals, mammoths, giant bears, and massive predators far larger than creatures alive today. Ancient people living among such beasts may naturally have imagined gigantic humans as well. Others suggest discoveries of prehistoric fossils may have inspired giant myths. Ancient civilizations uncovering enormous dinosaur bones or mammoth skeletons without understanding extinction could easily interpret them as remains of giant humanoid beings. But even those explanations fail to fully erase the mystery, because the Nephilim are not remembered merely as large humans. They are remembered as something unnatural, something forbidden, something connected to heaven itself. That is what separates them from ordinary giant myths. The Book of Enoch especially transformed the Nephilim into deeply disturbing figures. According to its narrative, the Watchers taught humanity warfare, metalworking, sorcery, astrology, enchantments, and hidden sciences humanity was not meant to possess. Civilization advanced rapidly, but so did violence. Knowledge became corruption. And the giants born from this union became symbols of uncontrolled power destroying the world. In many ways, the Nephilim story feels strangely modern. Humanity today also struggles with dangerous knowledge capable of transforming civilization. Artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, nuclear weapons, and emerging technologies constantly raise questions ancient people feared in different forms. What happens when humanity gains power faster than wisdom? What boundaries should never be crossed? And what if certain knowledge changes civilization permanently? Perhaps that is why the Nephilim continue haunting modern imagination. because their story is ultimately about humanity confronting forces larger than itself: power, ambition, corruption, and forbidden knowledge. Even today, alleged evidence connected to giants still surfaces occasionally online. Viral photographs claim to show enormous skeletons unearthed by archaeologists. Videos insist ancient giant races were erased from history deliberately. Most of these images are proven hoaxes or digital manipulations. Yet millions remain fascinated by them, because deep down, people sense there may still be missing chapters in humanity's ancient past. The world before recorded history remains incredibly mysterious. Entire civilizations vanished without explanation. Countless ancient texts were destroyed through wars and time. Huge portions of humanity's early story remain buried beneath deserts, oceans, and forgotten ruins. And within those lost ages, legends of giants continue echoing across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Perhaps the Nephilim never existed physically at all. Perhaps they were symbolic warnings created by ancient writers to explain violence and corruption before the flood. Or perhaps somewhere in humanity's distant, forgotten past, extraordinary individuals or events inspired stories that grew larger with every generation. But regardless of the truth, the mystery survives because it touches something primal within human imagination. The idea that before modern civilization, before kingdoms, before recorded history itself, something enormous once walked the earth. Beings remembered not merely as men, but as giants born from heaven and humanity together. And somewhere beneath ancient ruins, buried bones, forgotten myths, and sacred texts, fragments of their story may still remain waiting to be uncovered.